One second.
Great, okay.
So this wonderful attendance here, we really appreciate your support for our candidates who are volunteering to run for a 3-year term on the council. I'd especially like to thank our OLLI Vice President, John Schuyler, for working with me and the staff for this year's leadership recruitment effort. John and I had our fingers crossed, and lo and behold, we got 6 wonderful candidates.
Yeah.
Very fortunate this year. Now, on the other hand, OLLI does have a volunteer effort to find leaders in various roles that contribute to the success of OLLI. And OLLI at SOU here is outstanding. So it could be one of you in the future.
Absolutely.
Yay! Who said that? I agree. Anyway, today's candidate forum is an opportunity for all of you members to hear from the 6 candidates who definitely bring a wealth of leadership experience and a strong interest in OLLI and lifelong learning. And we appreciate your willingness, all 6 of you, for serving. Too bad we can't vote for 6. So please join me in welcoming, they're in alphabetical order, Jane Ballback, Tony Davis, Fernando Gapassi, Daya Jaggers, Ronald, but I call him Ronnie Kaufman, and Tom Wisdom. So the forum is going to start with each candidate providing a 2-minute, and John is going to be timer for our candidates. So they're going to have a 2-minute background statement to start. John's going to hold up the cards for 30 seconds and time out. And then we do have some prepared questions that have been sent to the candidates, and so we'll get to that point. I am not sure that there will be time at the end for questions. Fingers crossed, we'll see. So Jane, would you start?
Sure, my pleasure. My name is Jane, and like most women my age, I started my career as an elementary school teacher, even though I didn't want to, but we had to eat. My first job was in South Central Los Angeles, and my husband was at SC Dental School. It was interesting. I saw the best and the worst that the world had to offer. That's how I view it. I view the news differently than other people as well. I then went on to get a master's degree at what I didn't want to do anymore, but I discovered that I wanted to teach adults. Hooray. So I stayed on at the university. Then I became a human resources consultant for major corporations. And that was absolutely fascinating. Did that and organizational development. And my partner was my twin sister. So when we adopted 3 children from Korea, when we were in our 40s, I got to say to her, I can't do this full time, and you can have the full time money, and I'll take whatever you give me. So I was really fortunate to have a foot in both worlds, because most women that's really difficult for them, to put it mildly. So that's my professional experience. Oh, I forgot, Camp Pendleton Marine Corps Base. Yes, I taught reading at Camp Pendleton Marine Corps Base. Yes, I know more than they did. That's for sure.
Are there mics?
Yeah, I think the mics would be good.
Yes, yeah.
All right.
I was talking about, maybe not.
Thank you, Jane. Tony Davis.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. I grew up in an environment where learning and discussion and intellectual stimulation were encouraged. And I especially enjoyed math and physics as a kid, and still do. I planned to study physics in college, but I was lucky enough to have a couple of experiences at that time to realize that laboratory work was not my forte. And also to be enrolled at UC San Diego, where there was a strong linguistics department, and linguistics involves a lot of the same sort of analytical thinking as in the sciences. It isn't about just learning lots of languages. So I majored in linguistics and applied math there. On graduation, I enrolled immediately, probably a mistake, in a PhD program in linguistics at Stanford University. It took me a long time to get through that. I eventually did, with a couple of breaks along the way. Unsurprisingly, there were few jobs in academic linguistics when I finished. That is still the case. But by the time I did finish, computational linguistics and artificial intelligence were starting to thrive. And so I joined a series of startups. And in 2000, I moved back to the DC area to join one startup, which tanked about a year later. Then I joined another one that was a little bit more successful, dealt with audio and video search and retrieval, and was acquired by everybody's favorite cable TV company, Comcast. After a few years there, I got tired of that and I went to another startup doing computer-assisted medical coding software. Then that got acquired by 3M Health Information Systems. Anyway, I retired to Ashland in 2016. When I was in DC, I also taught on the side. That was a nice break from the corporate world. I taught classes 1 or 2 a year at Georgetown University. Since moving here, I've been very happy to be retired and enjoying the full range of cultural and outdoor activities. So I will stop with that.
Thank you. And then Fernando?
Oh, I probably won't need this. I'm almost deaf, as some of the folks who've taken my classes know. I have 5 kids. My wife Joanne sitting right there. She's a fact checker. Fact. I said fact. I've been a labor and racial justice activist all my life, and for part of that, I was even paid. My family were farm workers. We were founders of the United Farm Worker Union. My uncle was a founding vice president of the United Farm Workers and leader of the great strike and boycott, 1965, 1970. Growing up, I worked many jobs besides farm work. I worked in a hospital. I was a steel worker, an auto worker. I was a diesel mechanic. I worked in public transportation, school bus driver. I worked as an organizational analyst for management consulting firms. I did a tour in Vietnam. I've been a reformer and activist in 13 different unions. I did research and wrote strategy for the national AFL-CIO under President John Sweeney. I've been a local politician, and I have been a faculty member in 5 universities, and some of my publications even made money. I have a lot of experience working in coalitions, boards, and in education. OLLI contributes to building community, both education and socially. I want to help it remain financially stable and to grow, and I wish we had time for questions.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I grew up in San Diego, California, was born in the late 50s. A single child, and by the time I was 17, I decided that I wanted to be a professional model that I saw in all the magazines. So I told my mother I was going to New York, and she said, "No, you can't do that." And I did it anyways. And I got everything put together that I needed. I went, I got accepted. I was supposed to start, and I couldn't take it. I decided that it was too scary and I was all alone. And in the time that I'd been there, I had a big dose of what New York City was like from San Diego, which was quite different. So I came back and I went into a college here that offered fashion design and merchandising, and I took marketing and merchandising. So I got a degree in that, And then, I moved into, let's just jump forward. I got married. I had a daughter, and, I got married a second time and had another daughter. And then I had the unfortunate, my mother died, but I received a lot of money. And at that point, I took my children and I decided that I didn't know enough about the world and education, and I did want to know desperately. So we traveled to across Europe to New Zealand, and lived in Germany for 5 years. I taught English in Germany, and there's a lot more.
Thank you.
Lonnie.
Hello, everyone. My professional career began in 1969 as a film editor at WGN TV Studios in Chicago, and I did that for 2 years. A few years later, I shifted into technology, and by 1980, became the chief technical architect of one of the world's first global online distribution systems. In 1983, I founded a computer consulting firm that grew to 35 engineers serving Fortune 1000 companies, governments. After 16 successful years and revenues approaching $4 million, I sold the business to my partner. In 2001, I launched a consumer-focused internet company that provided customized car reports to consumers about their year, make, model car. Over 12 years, it grew to more than 600,000 opt-in members before I sold it in 2012. Alongside my business careers, I always made time for nonprofit leadership. I chaired the board of Divorce Recovery Inc. for 9 years and personally facilitated over 30 divorce recovery support groups, directly working with 350 individuals to get past this difficult life challenge. In 2012, I was elected president of the International Coach Federation of Southern Arizona by my peers of 40+ executive and personal coaches. I've also been elected and served on boards ranging from an 850 family synagogue to a $100 million community foundation in Southern Arizona. My journey with OLLI began in 2023 as a course presenter, and I have just started presenting my 9th class. I'll be honored to contribute my lifetime of leadership, innovation, and collaboration to OLLI's continued growth. And no more time.
Thank you all for coming. I was born in England. My father was a butler, my mother was a housemaid, and that made me acutely aware of the social class differences in England. After I got my degree in physics, I knew I couldn't stay in the country, and I followed an old girlfriend, actually, to South America. She lived in Chile. We were planning to make it work out. It didn't, as it turned out. But one day I wanted to stay, and so I walked up to the American school in Santiago, Chile, and I said, do you need a teacher? I'd never taught a day in my life. And they said, yes, and there's the classroom, there are books, go and teach, basically. That was certainly a trial by fire. For a few years, a chance conversation, somebody said to me, why don't you think of getting a master's degree? Well, that sounds like a good idea, I'm not doing anything else. So I applied and got accepted at a junior university in the Bay Area in Palo Alto, got my master's degree there, then had to look for a job. And sort of long story short on this one, applied to a private school in Hillsborough, if anybody from, I always figured about 50% of the population of Ashland was in the Bay Area anyway, so you might recognize the name. And I stayed there for 40 years, which is a very, very odd thing. Why did I do that? It was a wonderful place to work, so supportive, and I didn't have to wear a tie, one of the specs for working as far as I'm concerned. And I met my wife, Julia, through my hobby of acting. She was at the Shakespeare Festival. She was an actress herself, and persuaded her to come to Huffman Bay where we lived. And then when I retired in 2019, we came back to live in where we are right now, which was her grandparents' house. She's a 5th generation Ashlander.
Wow.
Wow.
Thank you. We're gonna move on to the prepared questions. The candidates were given these questions in advance. And we're gonna start with Jane and we're gonna move this way. The other questions, we're gonna jumble it up. So, what motivated you to volunteer for serving on OLLI at SOU Council?
What's my time frame this one?
Oh, 3 minutes. These are 3 minutes. 3 minutes each.
So I've been in Ashland for 8 years and have loved every minute of it. A good friend of mine who lived here brought me to my first OLLI class, which I knew nothing about because where I live, I don't know if they had it, but I didn't know about it. But having been an educator and a business person, sort of an interesting combination, I thought the idea of lifelong learning, which has been written about for a very long time, but not exactly acted on, was just an unbelievable idea for the knowledge, the intellectual stimulation, the cognitive, we hope, the cognitive reverse of decline, I'll put it nicely, and the people that you meet, of course. So not only did I take OLLI classes, I've taken several. I started teaching OLLI classes. I majored in history and minored in English, so I taught historical fiction and loved every minute of it, particularly as it pertained to women in historical events. So one of my classes was called Women in War, because people really don't know how women served in so many ways. When I was at the Lincoln Library, I'm an amateur American historian, there's a whole wall full of women who pretended to be men and served in the war. And so I just wanted to become an expert on the spies during World War II. Matter of fact, there was one in the New York Times today from France. She was 103. She was one of the many women, a lot of women, because no one suspected women, who went to France and just provided unbelievable intelligence. And that was the idea of all of that. And Churchill, it was actually Churchill's idea to come up with these women spies. He thought that was a nifty idea, and it did work really well. I also taught a class about a woman who was a sniper. Oh my, yes, indeed. She was very evil. I kept everything interesting. So I made sure that it had some historical accuracy because I wouldn't teach nonsense. But then other things, there would be other people in the book to keep it interesting. And so I just loved teaching those classes. I had to stop for a wee bit because I had a health issue. Now I'm back and here I am.
Thank you.
I'm motivated to serve because I find OLLI to be just a unique intellectual and social nexus in this region. I found out about it after moving here in 2016. And as soon as I found out about it, I was intrigued with the idea of teaching, and I've taught several classes since in various fields. And so I'd like to make sure that the organization continues to flourish, and also that we embrace potential opportunities that might enhance our goals and mission. And I'm open to all sorts of ideas along those lines. And I'll just offer a few tentative ones here. I suspect these are not necessarily going to be realized as I describe them, but they're just to show you that I've been thinking about how I might contribute in some imaginative ways. So one thing that I think is pretty obvious, right next door, you see that they're going to be building some new senior housing next to the Campbell Center. And that offers a real opportunity for us in terms of additional space, maybe dedicated to things that we don't have space that's well suited for here. Things like studio art classes, dance, movement, yoga, maybe even some athletics, perhaps even things like cooking. So we have a lot of talented people at Ashland who could be teaching more in those sorts of domains. And maybe there's an opportunity for us there. And along the same lines, there are other organizations we might collaborate with a bit more deeply. A friend of mine was mentioning a few weeks ago the possibility of teaching a cooking class. Well, that's not going to happen in these rooms, but there's a great demonstration kitchen and classroom at the Ashland Food Co-op. Maybe we can use that space. There are undoubtedly other sorts of venues like that that would serve various purposes that could work well with OLLI. It would also be worthwhile perhaps to see what kinds of scope there is for collaboration with other OLLIs. I know a lot of people have talked about that. I know that some of the structures, both of courses and the fees, are a little bit different. But in this age when people are moving back and forth a lot, and when technologies like Zoom are getting more and more common, that seems like something we could explore a little more. Along with that, also, of course, our travel programs. Those are now getting underway, and I like to travel. I think maybe I would have some helpful input on that. So a lot of specifics of what I've just talked about might well be addressed by various committees, not by the council directly, but I hope that maybe the council would have some valuable input. What's most important, though, is to maintain the council's sound oversight that allows OLLI to offer such a wide variety of classes and other activities for the members, and quarter after quarter keeps doing that. Thank you.
Actually, OLLI was one of the three main reasons for my wife and I moving to Ashland. We found that as a community, it had more per capita PhDs than any other city in Oregon, and I needed to have an intellectual community. I haven't been active in academia since 2008, since my hearing really started going downhill. And my students used to always play jokes on me, and I went back to what I really know how to do. So I went back to organizing workers, negotiating contracts, and fighting the man. And that to me was what I normally do, but I'm getting kind of old and I can't do that as much. So I wanted to write about it. I wanted to share my experience. And not only have I been able to find an active and political community, but I've also regained the urge to publish. And I found that exciting. And I took Susan's class and I learned so much, and I said, wow, you know what? The thing is that I can do this again. So I want to give back to an organization that has given to me. And besides, I got recruited and I tend to volunteer. So I raised my hand and said, I'll do this.
Can you say more? Okay. What motivated me most is just the fact that I love learning. I love researching. I never stepped into academia because I knew if I went there, I wouldn't ever have a social life. And so, and raising two kids, etc., it just didn't fit into the picture. So when I found out that OLLI was offering continuing education, I was ecstatic. And because all of my learning was basically at home with my nose in the book. And that was my main motivation. And then what I ended up doing was I've taken one course, and then I started teaching. So I taught in the winter, and that was a really wonderful experience to see how it is from a teaching perspective, rather than from a learner perspective. So it's just something that runs deep in me to have the collaboration, the connection on an adult level with learning and expanding our comprehension of the world.
Four score and 7 years. So what motivated me to volunteer for serving on the council? My OLLI journey began in 2023, as I mentioned before, when I started presenting classes and quickly came to appreciate the heart of OLLI, its dedicated volunteer leadership. I recognize that the spirit of service is what makes OLLI thrive. I felt moved to contribute my lifetime of leadership, innovation, and collaboration to OLLI's future, especially as they work toward OLLI's 2030 strategic vision. Being part of a successful organization like OLLI continues to be my life's desire. Thank you.
So being the last one, I can just say what everybody else said.
Yeah.
What motivated me? Selfishness. I was a stereotypical male who identified with his job. My job was my life. And then I retired up here. Now what am I going to do? Because that whole support system is removed entirely. I heard about OLLI. The first class I took was from Paul Steinley. Do you all know Paul? Non-fiction writing class. Boy, he's a professional if ever you've seen one. And I still use what he taught me in that class. And that motivated me then to look at other classes to take. And then volunteer. I taught a couple of classes myself. So the whole essence of retirement in the context I described it is finding community. And OLLI just fitted completely. So very selfishly, I have taken advantage of that. That's what motivated me.
Okay, I'm going to surprise all of you and I'm going to shift where we do the order of speakers for the next question. Because I just realized we're all going down this way. So we're going to start with you, Tom. And the next question is, what skills, talent, and experience would you bring to this leadership position? Because the 9 council directors are really the governing body of OLLI at SOU. So it is a leadership position. What skills, talent, and experience would you bring? We'll go in this reverse order.
And this one I am going to read out. As a high school physics teacher for 45 years and science department head for over 20 years, I've led teams, written curriculum, run workshops, and mentored colleagues. I think these align well with OLLI's mission of lifelong learning and community engagement. As chair of a search committee for a local head of school, I had to negotiate conflicting views and personalities and build consensus. And I'm proud to say we beat the deadline by hiring the head of school ahead of time and under budget. I spent 8 years grading AP physics exams in Lincoln, Nebraska. You grade one question for the whole week. About 5,000 or 6,000 of them I did every year for 8 years. I wasn't the only one, obviously. And I served on many school accreditation teams, which required attention to detail and a commitment to fairness. In a non-academic setting, I was the chairman of the local theater group in Half Moon Bay in California. I led many board meetings and oversaw strategic planning. Talk about herding cats. I'm a lifelong learner, as all of us are in here, I think, and get great satisfaction out of sharing what I've learned over the years. There's nothing like seeing someone's face when the light bulb goes on. It's a wonderful experience. So to summarize, I hope to bring collaboration, mentorship, strategic thinking, and a love of learning to the council.
So my professional background, as I previously shared, offers an eclectic array of skills, talents, and leadership. And I just made a checklist of, if you were to look on a checklist of what you'd want, this is my checklist of what I can offer you. Media production, technology and system architecture, entrepreneurship and business leadership, business growth and management, market insights, board leadership, public speaking, lifelong learning advocate, strategic visionary, and most importantly, this is most importantly, offers an open collaboration with others in the council.
Would say that I'm highly alternative. So, I don't come from the direction that these two gentlemen on my left are in, but I offer, a lot of skill in working with people, and I offer a lot of talent in understanding how we need to collaborate and work together and listen to one another in order to advance in ways that benefit the whole. I'm also a very, I feel lucky to have the ability to be the one up on the mountain looking down with a view of objectivity. So I can see all the different levels of what's going on and what's working and what's not working, and offer suggestions as to directions that we may want to consider. And I am a leader personality, so those are, yeah, I think that's about not the extent by any means, but those are the ones that I think are rather underestimated within business models, standard business models, that I would like to see more of this way of operating. And so that's what I have to offer.
As I was thinking about this, I mean, I'm a trained ethnographer. I do all kinds of organizational analysis, quantitative, qualitative, and I've been educated to do that. But that's not what I really do. I lead unions, I lead men and women, and usually it's in situations, lead them into situations they're not inclined to go. Sometimes hard and difficult places. But I guess what my real skill is I finish my jobs, I keep my word, and I aggressively try to understand people who I disagree with. The other thing is I practice open listening. For anyone that's interacted with me, you know I have to really concentrate when I listen to people, because I can't really hear. I'm reading your lips, watching your body language, everything, and then I give it back to you because I'm never sure I'm getting it right. So the thing is that that's what I mean, open listening. So I guess that's more like being aware of my environment and being able to adapt. But that's part of a longer conversation.
I would bring in terms of skills and knowledge is first a familiarity with OLLI, having been involved in it for 8 years. And I've been involved both teaching and taking classes, in person and on Zoom. Beyond OLLI, I've served on some boards and committees in this area. Right now, I'm head of the board of Friends of Hannon Library. I'm on the Science Advisory Board at Science Works, and I'm on the program committee of an organization called the Jefferson Center that presents programs of both local interest and also philosophical interest. Beyond that, I have what I think would be some useful skills drawn from my career in industry and maybe partly from my side jobs in academia. I eventually wound up in management in various ways and of course had to learn how to manage teams. They were not big teams, but they were a dozen people. And that didn't come to me quite as naturally as it does come to some other people. So I had to consciously learn some of that. I've become experienced enough at it to be good at, I think, facilitating meetings, have good attention to detail. One thing I am pretty good at is I have a good memory for most things, not faces, but all kinds of other things. Yeah. And I use those skills even these days. I coordinate a local backpacking group. I coordinate a local Go playing group. I do a lot of planning for trips for myself and friends, so I don't have to just book an expensive package. And of course, that same kind of planning skill goes into developing and presenting and modifying an OLLI class so that it's successful. So in some, I guess, my familiarity with OLLI and my experience in management and my interest in serving at OLLI will, I hope, serve this organization well and help it continue to thrive.
So as an organizational development consultant, I clearly know how to observe what's going on. And what I learned in doing that, when I would enter an organization as a consultant, which is not the easiest thing to do, you threaten almost everybody. And the fact there were two of me, I'm an identical twin, really threatened. Like, oh no. So as it ended up though, particularly in one very large organization in Los Angeles, we actually ran an entire department, even though we were the outsourced talent. And we supervised even the employees that were there. We ran a whole, they were outplacing, which is the first time they had ever done that. So we did that, and then we set up a career center, and then we set up the entire training center for this corporation. It was fascinating. But I found talents I didn't know I had when I landed here. So 8 years ago, I met Tori Allen, who was the head fundraiser for OSF, and he and his wife had done a TEDx event in Alaska, and they wanted to do a TEDx event here. So they nominated me chair because I was retired. So I got a license from TED. This was about 7 years ago. Had to come up with a theme, had to come up with sub-themes, had to find the people who could do it. The theme was life or death, but it had to be multidisciplinary. So I made it multidisciplinary. And I think the best thing I've ever done here is I was contacted by a woman who was dying of pancreatic cancer. I read her application and I went, oh my God. Then I had to meet her to see what was going on. And sure enough, she just broke it all down, the whole audience. It was called The Gift of Mortality. She was absolutely incredible. After that, there were some PBS people in the audience. They said, clearly you know how to produce things. I guess I do. So I did a local programming for PBS, which is still on local programming, where I interviewed 4 mature actors, because I wanted to hear more about than just OSF. So found 4 actors, you know, in New York and Hollywood and all over the place, wrote their scripts because I knew they wouldn't do it themselves, and produced the program. I cannot tell you what it feels like to have a little box on PBS. I always wanted to be one of their big donors who introduced everything. My husband said, if we sold everything we own, you can't do that, Jane. I said, but I have a box on PBS, and I'm very proud of that. Right now, I serve on the board for Camelot, and I also run a reading program, of course, for smart reading on the site coordinator at Walker Elementary School.
Thank you all. Okay, we are gonna start with Diane and go this way. Start in the middle and end in the middle. And this question is, over time, the annual membership survey, how many of you just did it? Oh, thank you. Awesome. The annual membership survey asks members for comments that provide ideas for what could make OLLI better. What is the one thing that you could change to make OLLI better?
At this point, I would venture to say I would not be looking to change anything that is currently what OLLI is. I would rather have the opportunity to be involved and from there take a stand if that was actually or if there was something that was a real area that needed or was concerning. But so my answer is at this point I wouldn't change anything.
Well, I only have a couple of minutes. It'd actually take a couple of weeks to talk about it. Only kidding. One meaningful change I would advocate for is the additional of OLLI classes in the evening. As someone deeply committed to growing and sustaining OLLI membership, I see this is a vital opportunity to reach hundreds of individuals in Southern Oregon, especially those in their 50s and 60s and even 70s who are still working during the day, but enthusiastic about lifelong learning, which is currently only available during the day. I recently heard from a woman who wanted to attend my afternoon class, and she said she couldn't attend due to her new work schedule. And she's not alone. By opening the doors to evening offerings, we could welcome many more eager learners who are currently excluded, helping to not only stabilize, but expand our membership and strengthen OLLI's long-term financial strength.
I'm going to have to punt somewhat on this because I'm a member of the Strategic Long-Range Planning Committee, and I am privy to, I won't call it confidential information, but lots of surveys and suggestions and so on and so forth. So I think it just would not be right for me to say anything that might infringe on that, because my colleagues don't have that particular information. However, if I do get elected to the council, I would pretty much be excited about implementing whatever changes do come along. There is one obvious change I would like to make, though I've got to state that. I'd like to change the thermostat on the wall. And if I could also just quickly go back to my previous somewhat facetious answer about motivation when I said selfishness, I should have made clear, because I want to give back. And as we all know, the act of giving, you usually get far more for yourself than you give out. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
did get a copy of the strategic plan. I hope that was okey dokey. I was told that everyone here got a copy. Is that not true?
Well, it's more the background information that went into it rather than
Oh,
reporting.
okay, great. Okay, so I got my little brain working on that. First of all, when I first heard I was gonna have to address, I thought, this is the most well-run nonprofit I have ever seen in my life. And a lot of work that goes on, things that are occasional oohs, but wow. I've done a lot of nonprofit volunteering because I've been volunteering for 16 years and I have seen it all. This is the best for sure. But as I read the plan, so I agree about the evening classes and maybe even Saturday, expanding. So I know you're at the Manor teaching classes. And so I wondered if you had checked in with Mountain Meadows. They're a smaller version of Manor, and it is not an assisted living organization. It is condos and houses. You just have to be 55. There's no other things that go on there in terms of helping people. But I do know the director of resident services, and I could just say, hey, can we come do our tap dance with a little preview? And I know there are many, many people who can instruct there, because a lot of PhDs live in Mountain Meadows as well. And then my brain went to, and I don't know about this, but I don't go to the country club. My husband golfs. I'm the happiest golfer there ever was. I like being by myself. But I wondered, there's a lot of people who have social memberships there. The golfers aren't going to come, I can tell you that. But there's a social membership there, and I was going to check on their demographics and see if they have people who are over 50 or 55, and because they've got a lot of places we could do a lot of things there. I took swing dancing lessons there. It was a ton of fun. So I think about how we can expand where we are if people don't want to come where we are or can't come where we are. So that's where my brain goes. Yes.
Thought also crossed my mind about expanding hours, so I think that's a great suggestion. The one I was going to mention, perhaps jumped the gun a little bit, because I was going to say, I think we can do something to make hybrid classes work better, and that owl sitting in front of us is part of that solution. I think hybrid classes are a great idea, but the ones I've been in have been a little bit clunky. Questions and discussion in the room could not be heard by people on Zoom. And so the instructor usually had to remember to repeat what was said. And in one class, taught by an extremely conscientious instructor, by the way, I essentially served as the reminder person to say, repeat the question. It slows things down, it inhibits discussion. There's technology now, you're looking at some of it here, that can make that experience better. And there may be other solutions too, not just the owl. But I think hybrid classes really also can expand our reach, just like some of the other suggestions that have come up here. There's a common theme there. So let's look into that. Thanks.
Thank you, Ronald, you sparked a memory that sort of gave a solution to what I think is something I would like to improve in OLLI. I was teaching at the Anderson School of Business at UCLA, teaching the MBA program, which is kind of funny for me, but there was an argument that ensued. I was always arguing in academia. Well, I'm sorry, maybe I shouldn't say that.
No,
But it had to do, they put me in charge of service learning, which is they give faculty that job who they want to remain quiet, or they don't think you're going anyplace. But service learning is, trying to make contact with the rest of the community. So I suggested a night MBA program for the Anderson School of Business. And so they kept ignoring me.
They didn't have it?
No, they told me that we're a first-tier university, not a night school.
Oh.
And so
Wow.
So I said, okay. So next thing I know, I'm in Oregon. But anyway, the thing the thing that I really think, why that's important, why I thank you for that, is because it's also a way of increasing racial diversity. Because, as I become active in Southern Oregon and participate in every demonstration you can think of, I found that there is a large community of people of color around here. And I think they ought to be here. So the idea of opening up programs that are accessible to people at night is a wonderful idea.
Thank you. I was gonna say, as we conclude today, would you join me with applause for him? But you've been doing it all along. And I've been watching the clock. I have a few things I wanted to share before we wrap up, but I think we may have a couple of minutes for 1, 2 questions. A few points I need to remind everybody of. The election ballots will be emailed May 13th. And members without an email or who share an email will receive hard copy ballots in the mail. And all ballots, whether it's electronic or mail, must be returned by Wednesday, May 21st. The election results will be announced May 26th. And this is one thing I know everybody loves, the ice cream social, which comes at the end of the annual member meeting, is at SOU Stevenson Union on June 6th. So I hope to see everybody there. And that's when the 3 candidates who will be new directors will be introduced. So I will take 1 or 2 questions. Do we have a question from online? Okay. Where's the first one? So somebody, you all seem capable, but 3 of you won't be elected. Where else might you provide your leadership skills on an OLLI? Yes, thank you. That's a super question. Because that is one of the things that, while I've been 3 years on council, it breaks my heart that everybody cannot win. And what happens to the people who don't win? Oftentimes you see them disappear. I hope that doesn't happen this year. So if you don't win, what would you do here for OLLI?
Certainly continue teaching, that's for sure. And maybe Tony work on the hybrid as well. Was it my class that you were reminding people? It was.
I'm going to take a trip to Tahiti.
Ollie trip to Tahiti.
Yeah.
Okay, when we get back from Tahiti, I'm gonna teach, because I teach a social art called generative scribing that is not known yet. But it is at MIT, so at least it's out there. But that was my objective in teaching to begin with here, was to hopefully have people who are interested in learning this social art.
What happens if we don't get elected council?
Yeah.
Yes, how will you serve us?
Okay. It'll give me that much more time to organize against MAGA.
Can't argue with that. I would probably spend more time on this proposal that's come up to lead trips for OLLI members in the vicinity, and I have a few in mind.
Back to teaching year, I had to take a break because of an illness. I do several other volunteer things, and PBS wants to talk to me again, but that was a huge, huge commitment. So I was gonna wait and see how this all turned out before I talked to PBS again, because putting on that program just took a tremendous amount of time and energy. So either one, but I'd rather do this.
In the room here? I know that there's another one online, but anybody in the room? No? Okay.
Will you call out Sue for him, please, see if she wants to unmute and ask her question?
Sue, do you want to unmute and ask your question, Sue Sorum?
Thank you. I'd like to know if any of you have taken a Zoom class, and if not, I highly recommend it because there are a lot of us out here who actually prefer Zoom. I started off loving the in-person. I do in-person in Medford, and if you haven't attended Medford, there are classes at the HEC. And I haven't heard anything about committee work. I don't think any of you are volunteering on a committee, but we have some fabulous committees, and I'm sure they all need help in the event you don't become a member of the council. That's it. How many have taken a Zoom class?
Maybe we could just have them raise their hand.
Yeah.
One.
Taken and taught.
Jane, yes.
Yes.
Tony, Jane, and Tony. Have you taken a Zoom course here, Fernando?
Yes,
Yes. Daya? No? Ronnie?
No, but I've taught 3 of them.
Ronnie has not taken one, but taught 3.
Taken and took.
And Tom, taken and taught. And I guess there's another online question. One more. Yeah, we got time. OLLI could do a lot more with more revenue.
Yes.
How best do you think we could generate that? For example, raise dues, membership fees, more members, more donations. Good question. As we're wrapping up our budget processing. I'm gonna start in the middle. Fernando,
how do you raise money?
how would you raise more money here?
Well, it does seem we're gonna have less money coming from the federal government. I would look for, more private foundations, because that's where they prefer us to look anyway. And the thing is that, I write grants, I can write grants. I could go, if we increase membership, we also increase revenue.
Yeah.
Because that's one of our streams.
Yeah.
So we write more grants. We improve enrollment. We especially get those night students and those increase the number of the people of color. Those are the things I can think of off the top.
Go that way.
Yeah, I would say the obvious way is to increase membership, and besides expanding hours, as Ronald has suggested and others have echoed. There might be ways to do more outreach, especially given the remarks about Zoom classes, that we can now attract more people from out of the area. And there are lots of areas of the country where they're not served by an institution of this quality and range and variety, where perhaps we could find ways to recruit members. But yeah, that seems like one obvious thing to try.
I served on with so many nonprofits that I turned myself into an amateur, but a good fundraiser. Also, please understand that consultants are unemployed at all times. I'm a good marketer. My sister and I stayed busy for 40 years. because not only did we do good work, we knew the appropriate way to tell people we were doing good work.
Daya, you want to answer?
Fernanda, I agree with you, on grants and also on the Zoom aspect of it. And also just perhaps Jane can put together a PBS special on,
Nolly is on.
Wow. In other words, getting the information out there.
I agree.
As I said, membership, how do you make that larger? And I think there's just a whole lot of people who are working, who would love to have classes at night. I think that would be a terrific thing. And the other thing I do is I put slot machines in the.
$150 a year is the biggest bargain
It
in
is.
Southern Oregon. So I'll touch the third rail, okay? Maybe we could look at possibly increasing it a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's only a few minutes after 5, so I was glad that we could get in a few more questions. And well done, because you didn't get it. We're gonna stop the recording. We've asked them to stay till about